Hey, Stewart's Chapel. This is Brother Don Pierson and Don Counts, and this is Monday's devotion, and we're at Thumpers. That's right. Those of you that are overseas and aren't from Stewart's Chapel, I said that right. His name is Thumper. Thumper Pig. That's right. Not making that up. I did their wedding. Thumper and Allie. It's Thumper Pig. Anyway, we appreciate Thumper letting us do this here. Thumper is a church planter, and this is his worship area, and so we're here in his worship area doing this today, and we're going to actually start with a scripture and a story that deals with worship. The passage is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 20. Now, that's not probably one of those easy books in the Bible for you to find, so if you have to cheat and go to the table of contents, nobody's going to know but you and the Lord. But it's Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 21 verse, and this is what it says. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. One of the questions that my wife and I are asked often are about what it's like to worship in a different language. One of my children memories, both of my children actually share the same memory. It's a good memory and a bad memory. It was hard for them. They were very young, and we were in Costa Rica for learning Spanish in Costa Rica. And guess what? Missionaries go to church. So we went to church. We went to La Trinidad Baptist Church, which means the Trinity Baptist Church, and there wasn't any English. It was a local congregation, and from the day we arrived for that whole year, basically, we didn't understand a word that was sung or preached for most of that year. It was hard on my kids to worship in that situation. But you know what happened? The more and more we went, the more and more those people loved on us. They knew we couldn't understand hardly anything they would say, but they would speak to us. They would love on us. They loved us, and we loved them, and we loved their worship. And we were able to worship. Through the years, as I left Costa Rica and went to Belize, immediately I was forced into a situation of putting my Spanish to work. And at the beginning, Mr. Bardalis was my translator at San Ignacio, but in the other churches that were Spanish churches, I would preach in English and translate myself. As time went on, I just began to preach in Spanish. Now, my Spanish is not good, and I struggled with how the people could worship through the preaching of someone whose Spanish was so poor. But I watched people worship. I worshiped in Belize. I pastored and filled in at Creole churches, and I worshiped as they worshiped in Creole. I worshiped in the Mayan Mopan as they worship and sang in Mayan Mopan, a language I do not know. I worshiped among the Quechua, also a language I did not know. As time went on and I was in Portugal and Brazil, I worshiped among those who worshiped in Portuguese. In Malta, I worshiped with those who preached and sang in Maltese. I worshiped in Gaza in Arabic. I worshipped also in Portugal in Romanian. One of my fondest memories of worship was with the Romanian church in Portugal. In Quebec, I worshiped in Montreal in a French church. All those different languages, and something happened through the years. I realized that worship is not about the ears. Worship is about the heart. In most of those worship services, I learned to be silent. I learned to be silent and allow my heart to seek the Lord. Even though that which I was hearing in my ears did not always make sense, I was able to worship. I worshiped with deaf congregations, and again, not understanding a thing, and where there was literally silence to my ears, I was able to worship. It's not unusual for someone to say to me that they're going to change their church because they didn't think their children could worship where they were. Or parents would say, or adults would say, I don't think I can worship here. I don't think they realize that those words spoken to a missionary, well, I don't think they realize the emptiness of those words. God's people in the Word worshiped in prison. They worshiped in times of abundance and they worshiped in times of plenty. They worshiped as slaves and captives. They worshiped as free. They worshiped when they were on a journey in the direction where God wanted, and they worshiped when they were settled. They learned to worship in a tabernacle, they learned to worship in a temple, and they learned to worship in a synagogue. They learned to worship in their homes. They learned to worship along the rivers, wherever. I have learned one thing. It takes very little to worship. The comfort of a chair, whether it's padded or pew or metal or just an old bench set upon some stumps or blocks, or sitting on the ground. I've learned that I can worship in a thatch roof hut with dirt floor, or a place that looks like a cathedral. I've worshiped in storefronts, worshiped in gas stations, and I've worshiped outside. I've worshiped with just one or two, and I've worshiped with literally millions. The only thing that is required for worship is a heart that is willing to seek God. If you're having problem worshiping, it's probably not because of the surroundings and everything that's around. It's probably not even the language or the preaching or the singing or the teaching. If you're having a problem worshiping, then it's a heart problem. You see, to start to worship, you always have to draw near to God. Not just a church or a building or a people. You draw near to God. I hope you will worship even when you don't understand anything that's going on around you. Love you, Steers Chapel.